Start, Mike, with a very simple one. First of all, thanks so much for being with us. The question
pleasure.
everyone's asking this morning, were the refs right to overturn the Steelers touchdown?
The instant replay officials were right in New York to make this decision. They've been under a lot of controversy this year, turning over plays that shouldn't be overturned. But in this one, they were 100% right, because as I have my friend who's there in New York, who was on the catch committee, if you are going to the ground, forget about football move, lunge, reach. That's all out the window. Going to the ground trumps any of those. So you have to hold on to the ball when you hit the ground. You have to survive the ground. The ball touched the ground. It came loose. It's an incomplete pass, and we knew it when we saw the first replay here in Los Angeles yesterday.
Mike, I'm not trying to date you here, but what year did you enter the NFL as an employee?
Gee, my gosh, that is your date.
Give me an approximation.
1996. 1996 was my first year actually on the field in the NFL.
In 96, was that a touchdown?
In 96, this was still an incomplete pass. This actually changed. Well, it was in 96. It was a touchdown.
Yes.
Changed with Bert Emanuel.
Yep.
Changed with Bert Emanuel in 99, I believe it was.
So
when,
the Tampa Bay playoff game, they changed
Correct.
it. Right. But so all of NFL history, prior to Bert Emanuel, this was a touchdown. My question...
See, back, here was the issue. Here was the issue back before Bert Emanuel. You know, players were making great plays, but the ball was touching the ground. Yes. And so, you know, you didn't want to take away a play just because a ball touched the ground, but a player maintained control. So it was after Bert Emanuel, the committee got together and said, how do we change this, the competition committee? And that's when they went to, okay, it's okay if the ball hits the ground as long as the receiver maintained control.
So here's my question, because this is a game that more than any time in history relies on passing and catching. And there seems to be legitimate confusion amongst fans, not amongst Cris, not amongst you, amongst fans. Is this touchdown going to count? Calvin Johnson, Des Bryant, I'd bring up Adam Thielen at the end of the first half in the Vikings game last week. Those in real time look like touchdowns, so the players on the field look like touchdowns. Why do we need this extra standard? Why can't the standard be for a guy catching the ball the same as a running back? Which is, he clearly has the ball, his knee's on the ground, he breaks the plane. If he's a running back, the world ends right there. Why can't that be the wide receiver standard?
Because here's my problem with that, and I know that's one of the most asked questions that you get. A runner reaches and the ball breaks the plane, it's dead immediately at that point. But a receiver trying to complete the catch is not a runner. You can only become a runner when you have completed the process of the catch. And that's how you differentiate between the two. And, you know, I get this whole notion, and it's tough, because when you look at a play, common sense makes you think that it's a touchdown, but you get involved with replay, and then replay actually overturns the call. But where the committee got hung up on this is that if you are going to say, okay, when you're going to the ground, if you have time to perform a football move or a knee touches the ground first, then it becomes a catch. Where the committee got into an issue is how much of a football move? A little bit of a Des Bryant extension, is that a football move? Is that a reach? You know, the committee always tries to make things black and white and tries to take the gray out of it. And it's confusing, Nick. There's no question about that, because there's a difference between an upright receiver who's on his feet, on balance. Then you have control, 2 feet, and the element of time. But the committee and the offices in New York, we all felt like that if you were going to the ground, you cannot use the ground to help you complete the process of the catch. And that's why it trumps all of those elements of the receiver upright. Element of time, control, 2 feet. Does not apply.
So, Mike, what you're actually telling us, there's 2 sets of rules for catching the football in the end zone. I mean, catching the football in general. There's one catching the ball upright, and there's one where you're falling, right?
Correct. And we had great examples of that yesterday. So you had an upright receiver who's on his feet, gets control, gets 2 feet down, turns upfield, then the ball is knocked out, ruled on the field as a catch fumble, upheld in replay as a catch and fumble. But going to the ground, and this is what's so hard to convince people, is all of those elements of time, football move, all those things you hear talked about, does not apply. And if you look at the play last night, the big controversial play, the one thing is, if you look at it at full speed, live shot, he's going directly to the ground. You can see it there. He is going directly to the ground. He's never on balance upright. And like I say, we knew when we saw the first replay, Dean Blandino, myself, and everybody else that works in the studios here, we knew that it was going to be overturned. The only question was, did you get a shot that showed the ball touched the ground? And you did, and therefore we knew it would be incomplete. And we knew we spent a lot of time on television and radio today, too.
All right, Mike, let's move on to the Cowboys-Raiders game. So the refs pulled out an index card to see if the Cowboys got that first down late in the fourth quarter. Just walk us through that one for us a little bit, what he was trying to show and what actually came out of it.
That's an old referee trick, and I've done it. You know, when it's so close that it's visually hard to see, you always carry a card, and the card that you carry is one that you actually record your penalties and you record the timeouts, and what you do is you run it down the front of the rod there, and if it touches the ball, then at all as you slide it down, even if it just barely touches the ball, then that means that the ball has reached the rod and you have a first down. Now, Gene Steratore said he was really only validating what he already knew, that visually he had already made the decision to make it a first down. If that's the case, then it's the Gene Steratore showmanship, you know, giving people something to talk about the next day. But I've done it before, too. Sometimes it's really hard to tell. As we know, it's not an exact science in terms of the chains and marking the ball. But it's not the first time we've seen it, but it may be the last because it's old and archaic. And as Nick said, I got to date myself. And going back in time, I used to do it, too. But Steratore's a throwback. He's a throwback to the olden days. And,
Mike, you don't have to date yourself. You're okay.
It doesn't go back that far.
The game ended with Derek Carr fumbling the ball out of the end zone as he dove for the pylon. This resulted in the touchback, and the Cowboys were able to ice the game. Another big issue that Nick had here after yesterday. Mike, what is the rationale behind such a harsh penalty for this?
Well, you know, this has been always talked about at competition committee meetings. I'm okay with this rule because I think if you fumble the ball forward and out of bounds, then I think you deserve to keep the ball. I think when you put a loose ball into the end zone, that to me is different. When you actually put it into the end zone, it's like punting the ball into the end zone. To me, you're responsible for putting a loose ball into the end zone. But it's happened enough time this year that I promise you that it will be on the agenda for the competition committee to look at again. Do you bring it back to the spot of the fumble, and would the Raiders retain the ball, you know, at the 1 yard line? My inclination is, based on the discussions that have happened in the past, is that it's not going to change. I mean, they'll discuss it, but if you put a loose ball into the end zone, not out of bounds, but into the end zone, unless you or a teammate recovers and it's outside of 2 minutes, then you have given up basically the ball.
Mike, my question is, and I understand these are how the rules are written. My argument is you should just change the rules. If you understand how the rules are written, Nick, then you're a better man than I am. No, I'm sorry. I understand what the rules are, I should say, not how they're written. If you fumble the ball out of bounds anywhere else on the field, you keep it. Like, if you want to have a penalty where you say, okay, you're backed up to your own 20, or to the 20, like a reverse touchback, fine. But it is so punitive compared to any other place that you fumble the football, and it dissuades players from trying to make awesome plays that fans want to see. Like, does that not sit at all with you?
No, it does, because we all know this is an offensive league, and the league likes points. Points are down a little bit this year. Number of plays are down a little bit this year. So the league does like offense. Now, several people have brought up that notion, Nick, of maybe you take the ball back to the 20, so there is a penalty for it. But I just don't know. To me, it's consistent with putting any other loose ball into the end zone. It'll get a lot of discussion. I mean, going back, dating myself, when I was in these meetings back in 2001 and 2002, we were talking about it then. So here it is 14, 15 years later, and it's still a subject of conversation, and it hasn't changed. And there is some consistency on the competition committee. Doesn't always change. Rich McKay has been the chairman for and before I got there. So I get it, and I see how people get frustrated with it, but I'm inclined to think that it's not going to change.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.